Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. With the upcoming elections, it's crucial to make an informed decision on who to vote for. Today we are diving into the manifestos of three major political parties in the UK: the Labour, the Conservative, and the newly formed Reform UK. We'll break down their key pledges, analyze their plans, and understand the pros and cons so you can decide which party aligns best with your vision for the future of the UK. Before we dive into the details, let me explain why it's important for personal finance, which is what this channel is all about. The policies and decisions made by our government have a direct impact on our personal finances, from taxes, housing cost, to healthcare and education expenses. Like I've always mentioned, this channel is about breaking down a big problem into smaller chunks and analyze them so you get simple answers. So I've done the homework, let's dive straight into it. Let's start with a brief introduction to each party. The Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer, focuses on social equity and the extensive public investment. The Conservative Party, led by Rishi Sunak, emphasizes on economic stability and gradual reforms. The Reform UK Party, led by Nigel Farage, advocates for radical economic and immigration reforms. Different political parties will put forward different ideas, claiming that this election is about one subject of their interest. Some could claim that this is all about economic growth. Another party could claim it's all about immigration. As public who are giving the vote to these political parties, it's important that we prioritize what's the most important thing for us. For each of these topics, different political parties have put forward different plans, claiming how they are going to solve this problem and how they are going to fund these reforms. Now that's very important. Everyone can claim to do certain things to solve a big problem, but how are they going to do it? What is the money game here? Where is the funding going to come for some of these ambitious programs that's been put forward? We will be diving deep into the details of those. Now let's go through each political party, their pledges, what their plans are, and how they plan to fund these reforms. To begin with, let's go into the pledges by going through the manifesto which was recently released for the Labour Party. It's quite surprising. The leading opposition party is coming out with their manifesto as probably the last one among the major political parties who have come out with their manifesto. Now you would always think a party that has been in the opposition for so long, looking at the terrible performance of the ruling party, would have some ideas already in their mind and plans on how they could do better. And they have quite an extensive plan. We will go through it one by one. Now, economic growth is one of the most important topics because that's the biggest crisis as far as political parties and people like us in our daily life are facing. Economic growth seems to be the hottest topic or the pledge that most of the political parties have rightfully put forward. Labour will introduce a new fiscal lock to ensure strict spending rules and economic security. They plan to halve the government consultancy spending and establish an office for value for money to ensure taxpayers' money is spent efficiently. The Labour Party will put forward reform planning laws to facilitate the building of 1.5 million new homes. First-time buyers will obviously get priority on these new homes. From an industrial strategy point, they have put forward a plan to create a national wealth fund to invest in key sectors like life science, digital, clean power, and automotive. This strategy includes developing technical excellence colleges to improve skills and training. Now, this is a great plan because they are focusing on investment in areas where UK is really lacking resources. It's really important that we emphasize investment on new renewable sources of energy and put forward investments that are lucrative for external investors as well to be attracted into the economic growth of UK. They've also focused on funding these by improving efficiencies in various consultancies that's been done in the government projects. Now that is very, very critical. I have friends working in public sector companies where a lot of money is spent on external consultancies. The question is how efficiently those funds are managed. Are they really required? Are they spent on the right value for money aspects of the program? I'm sure there are efficiencies to be found. If this government can bring out those efficiencies from these large public sector programs and make it more lean, I am very sure billions of pounds can be saved. The second major implementation that caught my eye in Labour's manifesto is clean energy implementation. They have this very ambitious plan of setting up Great British Energy, establish a publicly owned clean energy company to reduce dependency on imported oil and gas. This will create 500,000 new jobs as claimed by the Labour Party in green industries. They have a green prosperity plan to invest in renewable energy sources and upgrade the national grid to support clean energy production. Now, the funding for this would come from windfall tax to be implemented on a time-limited basis on the excess profits of oil and gas companies to fund the initial setup and operations of Great British Energy. Also, it will be backed by public investment using the National Wealth Fund to invest in green infrastructure and technologies. Now, this is a great plan because energy crisis has been one of the major problems faced by UK since the war from Russia on Ukraine was called on. Having our own surplus energy and infrastructure and investment channeled in the right direction for these new energy resources would be a brilliant investment if done properly. Now, one of the challenges is it's about setting up a new business up from scratch. Now, we all understand, even with the excess amount of resources, when it comes to managing people, processes, and setting up infrastructure, there is a lot of work to be done. This is not a short-term goal. This is a long-term one, which means the efficiencies and the benefits of this program will not be in the short term, it will be in the long term. But it's a step in the right direction, I would say. My biggest worry is the efficiencies and the quality of management, because we are already facing the problems in the current public companies, currently publicly held organizations like the NHS or the public transport. I won't go much more to say we all understand the problems we are facing. So if a new publicly owned company is to be set up, how different or how much better or how much even worse would that be? Would that drain our money further down the drain? That is a question that we should be asking ourselves. So the plan is really good. The plan is only good as its implementation. The NHS reform is the next most important factor of this election. From Labour's perspective, the utmost priority is cutting waiting times. In this, they plan to do by increasing evening and weekend appointments by paying NHS staff overtime. Good luck with that. Implement shared waiting list and collaboration between hospitals. Mental health services, they hope to recruit 8,500 new NHS mental health staff to improve access to mental health services. Technology and diagnosis perspective, they hope to double the number of state-of-the-art CT and MRI scanners to ensure early diagnosis of diseases. The funding for these reforms, they hope to find by closing tax loopholes on non-DOMs and ending tax breaks for private schools. The classic Labour Party. Now, we've all seen the problem with NHS. Doctors are on strike, nurses are on strike, asking for more pay. And here we are talking about recruiting more and asking them to do extra work over the weekends and overtime by paying them additional overtime rates. Now, it's entirely dependent on the negotiation that the new government will have with the respective NHS bodies to be able to arrive at the decision to have these pledges completed. I'm not saying it's unrealistic. I'm saying the current government has also tried sitting across the table and negotiate with them, which didn't bear much of a fruit. Now, this again is a plan. As we all see, a plan on a paper is as good as the paper itself. Now, we have to give some credit to the Labour Party because for the last 14 years when Conservatives were ruling, they haven't done much to improve this. The fourth important point is safe streets. Now, we all understand Street crimes are on the rise in UK, whether it is in London or in the outskirts of London. Labour hopes to improve neighbourhood policing by increasing the number of police officers by 13,000 and introduce tough new penalties for antisocial behaviour. They hope to establish youth hubs staffed with mental health professionals and youth workers to prevent crime and support young people. They also hope to establish fast-track courts to implement fast-track processes for serious crimes such as rape with specialized units in police forces and courts. The funding for this they hope to find through efficiency savings. Labour plans to fund these measures by ending wasteful contracts and implementing a police efficiency program based on shared services and procurement. Now, when I listen to this pledge and the plan, the first thought that comes to my mind is London street has become more and more unsafe. Just the other day we had a burglary out here, which is in the outskirts of London, and this is in broad daylight. I was talking to some of my neighbors and they said they've been living here for 20-25 years and they've never ever had a burglary reported in this area. So this is on the rise. In London, you can't even have your phone in your hand. Anytime a masked robber could come on a bike and snatch your phone. This is quite prevalent now in the London streets. So when Labour Party claims to crack down on all this, I wonder what Sadiq Khan, who's the mayor of London, who is from Labour Party, has been doing so long. So you can only trust on these plans assuming a new leader like Keir Starmer is going to come in and change things. These comprehensive plans highlight that Labour's approach to addressing the key issues that we face in the UK by implementing targeted reforms and securing necessary funding through a combination of tax reforms and efficiency measures. Now let's move on to the Conservative Party led by Rishi Sunak. Now, given Rishi Sunak's background and being the ex-chancellor, you will find a lot of numbers down to the penny in the manifesto. And it would appear that it's all calculated and it's all planned. Let's go through the details and see how much of it carries actual weight and how much is actually achievable. Economic stability and growth is the most important factor for Conservative parties, and they have focused everything around it. Tax cuts reduce employee national insurance by 2 penny, aiming to halve it to 6% by 2027. They hope to abolish the main rate of self-employed national insurance. The funding for this is to come from the projected savings from reducing waste and improving efficiency across government departments. Businesses would get additional support by extending full expensing policy to leasing, abolish the main rate of national insurance for small businesses, and support small businesses with 4.3 billion business rates package. The funding for this they expect to come through increased efficiency and reduced public sector waste, potentially saving billions annually. They also hope to divert some of the infrastructure investment, like reinvesting the £36 billion from HS2 savings into local transport projects, including the £8.3 billion for potholes and road resurfacing. The funding for this is coming from the redirected funds that were previously allocated to the HS2 project, which has been scaled back now. These are proper numbers planned out on where the funds are going to come and how they're going to fit into the reform plan of the Conservative Party when it comes to economic development. Now, a lot of it is based on improving efficiencies of the government departments. That sounds like a lot of bullshit to me. You know why? Because they have been in power, and if these efficiencies were even met to a quarter, we would have seen wonderful results. Now, the question is, if efficiencies could have been achieved, why were they not achieved so long? 14 years the Conservatives have been ruling the country, and in the last 5 years, it's gone down the hole. So if we are talking about efficiencies, I wouldn't take the word of the same people who are in the chair at this point. So from an economic standpoint, I wouldn't listen to Conservatives, because if you look at what they've done in the last 2 years, you can blame it on COVID, you can blame it on the war, energy crisis, but the entire world has been facing it. It's not just UK. But what happened in UK, large proportion of it is down to our leadership at Westminster. We had an interim Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who took us all the way from here to here, and from mortgage from here to here. I'm sure none of the public in UK will ever forgive her for doing this and trashing our economy so badly that everyone has been left with no money in their savings. So talking about efficiencies is not something people would be listening from the Conservative Party. Having said that, I would still give some credit to Rishi Sunak because the point at which he inherited the leadership, a lot of the problems in UK were already present and he had to inherit a lot of that baggage, and he has been trying and coming up with some of the solutions. And I think with some of the steps that's taken by the Conservative Party, we can see some improvements in the economic climate in UK. We've already seen the inflation come down to close to 2% now, and hopefully the mortgage rates will start to stabilize and even come down. But we are a long way off from how comfortable we were prior to this whole crisis that was triggered by the leadership in the Conservative Party. The Conservatives have come forward with the triple lock, the tax and pension protection implementation, the triple lock plus as they call it. They guarantee the state pension and the tax-free allowance for pensioners will rise with the highest of inflation earnings or 2.5%. The funding for this triple lock is through maintaining economic growth and stability to ensure sustainable pension funding. From a childcare perspective, they hope to provide 30 hours of free childcare per week from 9 months old to the school, saving families an average of £6,900 per year. The funding for this will come from the efficiency savings within the existing government programs and reallocation of resources. Child benefit reform. They hope to move to a household system with a combined income threshold of £120,000. This means more families will benefit from the childcare funding. The funding for this again is to come from expected savings by reducing fraud and ensuring fairer distribution of benefits. They hope to give a triple lock, like not to raise taxes, not to tax your pension, and to keep all the benefits with people, and at the same time find money to do all these investments and reforms by finding it through the efficiencies and savings. And that is a highly ambitious thing. Now, when we talk about finding a lot amount of money through savings or through efficiencies in the current government operations, the first question that comes to my mind is, why is that not done now? Is there a particular date when you have to start doing it? Or is it like you can only do it during the time of election? So a lot of it sounds to me like a gimmick to say that we are going to offer this, but the money is going to come because we are going to start operating very efficiently just after you elected. The problem with this is they are telling us what we would like to hear. On the health and social care front, Conservative Party is NHS spending above inflation, recruits 92,000 more nurses and 28,000 more doctors, and modernized GP surgeries. The funding for this will come in a combination of public funds and efficiency savings within the NHS, reducing waste and improving procurement practices. Now, this sounds like a kid writing an essay on how to improve NHS. They're going to fund NHS more, and they're not going to increase taxes because of the triple lock pledge, but they're going to find savings and improve the operations in NHS. And on top of that, they are looking to recruit more 92,000 nurses. Sounds magical. The problem is, where are you going to find all these people? I mean, the way it is currently run and the pay that is offered, it's not a lucrative profession. And even people from overseas who earlier wanted to come to UK are no longer interested in coming to our broken economy. So hoping to find these many more resources is probably a dream. I think the right thing would be to invest in the current people, so you make sure they don't leave UK, and also improve the processes. I think within NHS, the biggest problem we have is not nurses or doctors. It's the huge amount of spending that goes into consultancies and the levels of management. I think it's a broken system. The way it's funded is broken, and the way it's managed is broken. That's where radical changes need to come, so the money is not lost, or it does just not vanish whereas it goes to the right people who are the nurses and doctors who have taken us through the hard times of COVID and is always there to take care. In the manifesto of the Conservative Party, they hope to boost defense spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2030 and support Ukraine with military supplies. The funding for this is again coming from reducing in the size of civil service to pre-pandemic levels and cutting waste in the government. Immigration control. Introduce a legal cap on migration and removing illegal migrants to Rwanda. Funding through efficiency savings from streamlined immigration processes and reduced cost associated with illegal migration. I think it's high time UK increases defense spending because our defense is in dire straits. I cannot even imagine if there was a war on NATO called out by Russia, or if there is a war from Russia called out on UK, would we even be able to defend our borders with the current defense budget and the capabilities that we have? And on top of that, where we don't have money, we are extending all sorts of help to Ukraine and other countries where we can't even defend our own borders. Immigration control. I think immigration will get automatically controlled if UK continues in the current state, because it will become less of a likely destination or a prospective destination for anyone who wants to find a better environment or a better economic climate compared to their country. Unlike the Labour Party, the Conservative Party aims to fund their ambitious plans without significantly increasing public debt or taxes. The party that has historically increased taxes time and time again and has not brought any efficiencies in operations, and in fact has brought out more and more inefficiencies in most of the public health organizations like the NHS waiting times, the public transport, the condition of our roads. There are potholes which I've never seen before in UK. The roads are in dire condition. The infrastructure development is a pity, and we are talking about more and more money going to flow from somewhere because suddenly efficiencies are going to start in operations. Initially, I was looking to do a comparison between Conservative Party and Labour Party because these are the two single largest parties in this election. It's only lately that Reform UK Party has caught the limelight, with Nigel Farage stepping in as the leader for the party and also contesting the elections, which was quite an amusement for all of UK public. So I was curious to understand what are they offering in their manifesto. I shouldn't call it the manifesto, they have called it the contract with people, which I quite like. And if you go through the contract that they have drawn out, it's quite interesting because all of their ideas are quite innovative and they have actually looked at it from an entirely different perspective. And I like how they put it like it's a business. And I've always believed government is always a business at its highest level, and the Prime Minister or the leader of the ruling party is the most powerful businessman in the organization, or should be the most powerful and influential businessman in the organization. So it's interesting to see how they have crafted their contract and how they planned on the similar fronts of reforms which Conservative and Labour are looking to offer. They are offering radical changes, or if I may call it innovative changes, in terms of bringing the results. So let's step through this, and I'm sure you will find it interesting as well. On the economic reforms aspect, VAT and business rates. So they are talking about raising the VAT threshold, which is to increase the VAT threshold to £120,000 to help small business and avoid VAT registration and compliance cost. The current threshold is £80,000. Abolish business rates for high street SMEs, offset by a 4% online delivery tax for large multinational enterprises. This would involve legislative changes and setting up new tax collection system for online deliveries. Another thing they are focusing on is red tape reduction, which is another way of saying increasing the efficiencies of operations. They hope to scrap the EU origin laws, remove thousands of laws from the EU that hinder business productivity, review and repeal or replace existing laws through parliamentary procedures. Now, these are all groundbreaking, innovative ideas or radical changes, as many of you might call it. They are straight away looking at giving you a result If you raise the VAT threshold, there are immediate savings for small businesses operating below that revenue margin. These ideas are going to churn business activities and which will contribute to the recovery of our economy and even faster growth of our economy. As a freelancer or a small businessman, I would welcome these ideas with both hands. Also, when it comes to goal setting, there is some concept of SMART, which are SMART goals. So specific, measurable, action, resource oriented and time bound, which means you know what goal you're setting, by when you hope to achieve it and how you want to achieve it. So the contract written out by the Reform UK party is more or less aligned to that, which is quite interesting the way they put it out there. And they have everything committed to a first 100 days plan. They're not talking about what I'm going to do over the next 5 years. So the first 100 days, the immediate benefits. And from an analyst perspective, if you ask me, it's always about prioritization and looking at a short-term plan and multiple short-term plans to achieve your long-term objective, which is quite good. So I won't go through all of it, but some of the key ones which actually caught my eye and which is actually going to decide whether it will put money in our pocket or not is what I'll be focused. From an individual economics perspective, the critical reforms put forward for the first 100 days is what they call as make work pay. So lift the income tax start point to £20,000 per year, non-taxable income limit. This frees up 7 million people from paying income tax and saves every worker almost £1,500 per year. This will help many back into work and escape the benefits trap. Basic tax rate stays at 20%. The higher rate should begin at £70,000. The second major point is about cutting energy taxes and beating the cost of living crisis, which would save households over £500 per year. They hope to scrap the VAT on energy bills, lower fuel duty by 20 pence per litre and scrap environmental levies. They also hope to cut the residential stamp duty, substantially boost the economic activity and house building by cutting stamp duty to 0% below £750,000, 2% from 750k onwards to 1.5 million and 4% over 1.5 million pounds, which is amazing. You don't have to pay stamp duty on a property that is up to the price of 750k pounds. They also hope to abolish the VAT tourist tax. The government has cost our economy over 10 billion when they stopped the VAT refund scheme for tourist shopping. This also deterred up to 2 million tourists. They also promised to abolish the grief tax, inheritance tax for all estates under 2 million. That means some 98% of all the estates in UK would come under that. The rate above 2 million will be 20% tax with the option to donate. All of these together cost, as per their calculation, 70 billion per annum. All of these would put more money in our pocket and as well as help us save for our next generation. This will put more money in the pocket, thereby triggering more economic activity in the market, thereby boosting the economy further, which would trigger growth for businesses as well as individuals in the UK. Similarly, for small business, there are critical reforms which they hope to achieve in the first 100 days. Over 1.2 million small and medium-sized business would be free from corporation tax if they lift the minimum profit threshold to 100k, reduce the main corporation tax rate from 25% to 20% and then to 15% from year 5. Now, if you're a freelancer, you would very much relate to this, which is to abolish the IR35 rules to support sole traders. Britain's self-employed often work longer hours. Many have no pension and receive no sick pay. Just from the last two aspects of personal and business economy, you can see how much they are overhauling the taxation system in the UK. Now, that is something they have very much focused on. And I think that is crucial because the economic activity from small medium enterprises and working people is what is lacking in UK now. And that is pretty much down to the heavy taxation that's been put on us over the years by the Conservative Party and its leadership. So it's high time that we realize it's not working in the benefit of anyone. It's not helping our economy grow. So a radical change is very much required, and I see here a very, very bold move in that direction. And this party, which is led by Nigel Farage, is very much focused on immigration. I think people misread him saying that immigration is bad for UK. I don't think he is saying that. I think he's talking about the net immigration. It's not about race or which country people are moving into the UK. It's about country first. And I am an immigrant. I came here in 2014 and now I'm settled UK British citizen. So I myself saying immigration is not a bad thing, and I don't think this party is also saying anything wrong about immigration, but you have to keep it under control where it's in the benefit of the country. Today what is happening is the net migration is rising year on year and it is uncontrollable, and with the resources available in UK we are not able to distribute them equally, or for that matter even to the bare minimum that is required. What then happens is, due to the scarcity, the disparity between people who are able to avail it versus people who require it is going to increase, which is contributing to various things here. The economic problems, the crime rates are increasing. Not to say that crime rate is increasing because of immigration, but crime rates are increasing because you don't have the money for living, so you're resorting to other sorts of purposes. So what they put forward in this reform is very much targeted on how to control net immigration, or the target is to achieve a zero net immigration. First from their side is to freeze non-essential immigration. This is key. Smart immigration can target the essential skill our economy needs, such as doctors, nurses, successful business people earning above the average salary. Stop the boats carrying illegal migrants with our 6-point plan. Recognize a national security threat. Leave the European Convention on Human Rights. Zero illegal immigrants to be resettled in the UK. Offshore processing for illegal arrivals. New Department of Immigration. Picking up migrants out of boats and taking them back to France. We are legally allowed to do this under international treaties as claimed by the Reform UK party. They are also talking about secure detention for all asylum seekers. Asylum claims that arrive through safe countries will be processed rapidly offshore in British overseas territories. This will stop the scandal of undocumented asylum seekers absconding to work illegally or to commit crime. Immediate deportation of foreign criminals. Deport foreign nationals immediately after their prison sentence ends. Withdraw citizenship from immigrants who commit significant crimes. Now this one's not going to score much brownie points with students. They are suggesting to restrict student dependents. Introduce a new visa rules for international students and their dependents. Only international students with essential skills can remain in the UK when their study ends. Close down fake courses and abusive immigration schemes. Stop the illegal working scandal. Local wages have been slashed because of cheap, undocumented illegal labor that undermines British workers. The pro-immigration establishment has not enforced the rules. Significant penalties will be imposed on companies and directors that breach these rules. Now, all of this put together, the Reform Party's immigration pledge savings is estimated to £5 billion per annum. Now, on the NHS front, they are hoping to transform doctor and nurse availability. All frontline NHS and social care staff to pay zero basic rate tax for 3 years. This will help retain existing staff and attract back many who have recently left. We want the best staff with patients, not in offices behind desk or retired. Now that seems to be a great plan. This will naturally increase their take-home pay without having to increase their salary. Use independent healthcare capacity. Cut waiting lists by using UK and overseas providers. This independent sector includes many not-for-profit health providers that provide some of the best care. Organizations such as Nuffield Health, Marie Curie, which provides end-of-life cancer care, are charities. We want to encourage more of these organizations to end the NHS crisis. They're also suggesting an Australian-based healthcare system where there will be a tax relief of 20% if you were going to take private healthcare, if you can afford that, which means people who can afford that can use the private healthcare, which would put reduced pressure on the NHS. And this would also incentivize people who can afford to pay because they get a 20% tax cut on whatever spend they do on the private healthcare. And this way, those who rely on NHS will enjoy faster, better care, and independent healthcare capacity will grow rapidly as well, providing competition and reducing the cost. firms should be encouraged to offer staff health insurance. Now, most of our companies offer their employees health insurance, and this will become a standard moving forward. Labour will instead add VAT on independent healthcare, which will make NHS worse off. The next one is also quite crucial. They are looking to invest in doctor and nurse training, which is really end training caps for all UK medical students, write off student fees pro rata per year over 10 years of NHS service for all doctors, nurses and medical staff. That would be amazing, right? That's like investing in the resources for the long-term plan, which I think sounds like a brilliant plan. If you go to the website of the Reform Party UK, you have a full table of each of the pledge, how much it's going to cost, and some of the reforms they are suggesting, how much it's going to add to the savings of the government and British public, and that net off. It's quite it looks like a business plan. Only time will tell how much of this can actually be implemented and how efficiently it will be done. But Reform Party has just stepped into the scene, and it's a long way for them before they can even about forming a government. But it will be very interesting to see who will be the opposition in the parliament. So I think it's not a party that is to be ignored. They have some brilliant ideas and they have some brilliant plans. The question is about who will form the government, who will form the opposition, and by what majority. So let's look at the potential impact based on which party gets elected. So if the Labour Party forms the government, they would aim for broad social improvements in healthcare, housing and energy, with potentially high positive impact if successfully implemented. The Conservative Party, on the other hand, focuses on tax relief and improving public services with a moderate to high impact on economic stability and public welfare. The Reform UK Party, on the other hand, is proposing radical changes with potential high economic impact but also high risk due to the controversial nature of some of the policies. It's important to understand our country in its current state needs leadership to take it in a different direction. The current status quo, if continued, will not bring any positive results that you and I are looking for. It will only continue to either degrade or stay in the same pathetic state as it is now. So, vote with your head, not with your heart. Honestly, in the betterment of your country and your people. Vote with conscience and not for favor. This may be a lot to take in, but I have tried to summarize it in a table below. All of the links and resources that I've used to arrive at this presentation has been put in the description below. I will also put in a quick summary tables so you have a quick glance as well. I hope you enjoyed this particular episode, and I hope this will bring more insights for you to make an informed decision on who to cast your vote for. We will all find out very soon what direction is our country going to move forward and how that is going to affect the personal finances of each and every one of us in the UK. If you found this informative and you would like more of same content, please do like and subscribe to my channel, and also in the comments let me know your feedback on this and what new topics, discussions that you have, or you might have a completely different opinion. Let's get those conversations going, and if there are specific topics you are looking for me to analyze and come back with details for you, then please put in those comments as well. I will be taking that away and will be coming back with more interesting episodes in my channel. Until then, see you and thank you.